mind mapping. This is one of my favorites, and I actually think that this one could be, well, I'll save that part for later to tell you, but I think it could be a good activity as well for when you're wrapping up the camp and you're trying to get your campers to really kind of take a collective awareness of what they gained from the camp, what it touched for them, all those other things, to just kind of synthesize their own experience of what the camp was like for their own mindful awareness, and so that they can communicate it to their parents and to their friends and family about what exactly happened in camp. But for this example, we're just going to use jobs again, okay? So what we do is we take a piece of paper and we put some concept. Here it's my job. But for your campers, you could have them say, my experience at camp, or, you know, Camp 2023. My experience at camp probably just sounds a little boring, but you could say Camp 2023. And then you say, what are the first, say, 3 things that you think of when you think of this concept, my job, or Camp 2023? And as you can see, these are a few examples of the first things that come to mind. And then you ask yourself, on each one of those items, what are the first things that come to mind for each one of those items? Okay? And the reason for this is because our working memory can only hold 7 plus or minus 2 items at any given moment. That's why phone numbers are usually kind of the max. You know, some people could do a phone number plus a couple more. Some people, you know, phone number is sort of the max. But the point is that when you have multiple points, so say my job reminds me of making a difference, which reminds me of charitable donations, and it also reminds me of demands of my time, which also reminds me that I'm getting out of shape because I'm not going to the gym. All of these other things, right? It's impossible for any person to really have a mental snapshot of all of the little neuronal pathways that are getting pinged from this one concept of my job. And so by putting that onto a map on paper, you literally have a new way that your brain can see and process and understand the information that's truly out of the grasp of your brain. And it's super quick. Like for some people, they compare it to journaling, and that's true, but journaling, you have to write a lot more. This thing you can kind of scribble down. Now the next step, once you have your mind map made, is you start noticing that there are connections. So someone might say, okay, well, making a difference, that's nice. I'm being a good role model for my kids, not like my campers, but like my actual kids, right? And then you might say, okay, well, that actually kind of connects to the fact that the job put some demands on my time, which did connect to me spending less time with my kids. But now that you look at the mind map, you say, well, I may not be all the time with my kids, but I am being a good role model through my work. And so you can see how some of these things start to connect. Or you might say, well, the job is at least financially rewarding, so perhaps I can give myself permission to hire a trainer to address this getting out of shape problem, right? And so again, there's really no way that we could actually see and actually manage, and I was going to say manipulate, but I don't mean that in the negative way. I mean manipulate, like pick up the pieces and move them around and see how they connect, unless we put them on paper. So then we might start to say, okay, I've had all of these insights. What is it now that I want to do with them? And you can see some ideas here. And a big one as well is to maybe asking your spouse to communicate. So you might start to realize, okay, well, when I'm away and it's kind of being perceived at home as if I'm just not present, maybe I need my spouse to communicate to the kids, so-and-so is gone, this parent is gone, but they're gone because they're providing for our family. That's the reason why they're gone. And I would feel better if my spouse would actually emphasize that to my kids, because it would mitigate this part about feeling less present with my kids, right? So this is just one example, but people do tend to have improved feelings at work and greater motivation at work when they can start to realize what are some of the challenges. But again, you can do mind maps as even like a daily debrief for your day. You can just put my day in that circle, and then you can start to see what came up for you today. What are your feelings about it? What did it remind you about from the past, etc. I mean, honestly, I think with camp counselors, there are so many things you could do with that. So for the camp counselors in the pre-camp time, you could say, what are your thoughts about leadership? Let's do a mind map with leadership. Or, what are your thoughts about being a camp counselor? Like, what all comes up? What connects to that? And then again, I think it could be a fun one too for the campers as you're wrapping up.